Alright everyone, I am here with a very special video. I have been accepted into the content creator program. Originally when I started my YouTube channel, it was just for war purposes, looking back on fights and helping out with future fights, and also to catch champion interactions. But when Kabam announced the rebalancing program, I got excited and thought I would like to jump in and help rework champions in the future. So I applied, I got in, um, and that's basically the end of that. I've only been in for a short few weeks, and what you can expect out of this channel now is still the war content, but I will also be throwing in new champion gameplay, and my first is Omega Sentinel. Alright, so she's likely going to be a rank 3 option for many players since she's in the top 3 for prestige. On top of that, she can be a tricky defender. She has an armor up ability that triggers auto block when she's defending at 5 armor ups. And she gains the armor ups when an attack, a basic attack, is repeated. So if you're thinking Mix Master causes evade from the same attack back to back, it's the same way she gains armor ups. She'll obviously gain to about 5, and then the next attack will be auto blocked. If she's stunned, she'll shrug the stun, and then she'll activate the parry mastery against you if it's in her tree for whichever summoner placed her on defense. So just on those two things alone, she's a rank 3 option for many profiles. For attack, her damage is great. It's there. I've actually got 2 clips, and I thought long and hard about how I was going to present this info to you guys, because I don't want this to be, and I don't want other champions to be, oh my god, god tier, you need them on your roster, or oh my god, they're broken. I'm actually going to try and avoid stuff like god tier and overpowered. What I have in the 2 clips is one way to play her absolutely horribly and still see the damage, and then how you should probably play her, where it's probably going to be a little bit more stressful, but you're going to notice, especially as you get comfortable with her, that it's actually quite easy to maintain. And both of these clips are going to be against Winter Soldier, and it's actually good that they are. Her mechanics rely on refreshing and maintaining non-damaging debuffs, so you kind of want to see against a passive AI how easy or how difficult it is to maintain those debuffs. And before I show those clips, I just want to mention that there are 3 debuffs she has. She places 1 depending on which weapon she has active. You can pick in the pre-fight screen which weapon you want to start with. But 1 is a cowardice buff, 1 is a tracking buff and debuff, and 1 is a heal block debuff. And if you don't happen to have the right weapon selected during the fight, you can use a heavy attack to switch. Alright, so knowing that little bit of info, know that her utility lies in those debuffs. You're typically picking a weapon that you want for the fight that calls for that debuff. Now with Winter Soldier, there's nothing specific, so I left it in the weapon that places cowardice. And what you're going to notice here is that I'm not really focused on trying to maintain 3. I'm not focused on either having a heavy attack or ending with a light attack to pause the debuff. What I'm doing here is playing her poorly on purpose, and building to SB2 and just firing SB2s, or special 2s. So this is just to kind of showcase, like, if I were to do nothing towards her kit, this would be the baseline of damage. You know, a 500,000 health fight is going to take this long to do if I don't actually play her kit and I just focus on the incinerates that I have when I fire SB2, and I'm not worried about pausing them at all. Now for the utility of the fight, if this was a fight where maybe I'm fighting a Wolverine in Realm of Legends, then I'd be using the heal block debuff instead. And what you're going to notice with the specific weapons debuff is that even though I'm not pausing it, I've actually got the debuff up the entire fight. And this is against the passive AI. So even in her base strategy of just not even playing her to her abilities, you're maintaining the utility without really even trying. And I am baiting out special attacks here. I'm not going to push this Winter Soldier to SP3 because that's not a practical fight in either questing or war or AQ. I'm making sure that you can see there's time without playing her correctly to keep a 100% active debuff for whichever debuff you're trying to utilize. Also, while doing some minimal damage. So I think this fight ends up being around 188 hits. Um, and that's what I would say is the bare minimum. It could get lower. You could be fighting a debuff immune champ, obviously. But I don't know that I'd recommend Omega Sentinel for a debuff immune fight unless there was something that punished that immunity um, in a quest. Anyways, um, this is basically it. She's fun to play. She's very smooth to use. Her animations are awesome. If you've got the sound on, it even sounds satisfying. So it's gonna be great for her that she was part of the Summoner's Choice polls and that she's coming out guns blazing or guns firing as just a likable champ. And then in the next clip, when this one ends, I'll kind of talk over the probably the better strategy to play her to maximize the damage. And this is a rank 3 unduped without boosts and no synergies. So it's just purely her. And she's got a few synergies that help with some additional utility. May not be a war focused utility, but it could be definitely be a questing utility. Something like pairing her with Sentinel because you're bringing them both along for a quest, or Nimrod. The one with Psylocke is probably the bigger. And then I got hit there, and then boom, fight over. So 186 hits for a fight where I didn't really try and play her. So now what I'm going to do in this fight is I'm going to focus on building to 3 debuffs with whatever weapon I have selected. So again, I don't need to utilize all 3, and there's not a specific debuff I need here, so I stayed in Cowardice. And then when I get 3, because of the full combos that I was doing, I was building armor ups, and the SB1 increases the duration of those debuffs by 5 seconds. So they're 8 seconds long, 5 seconds is added, they're refreshed, so that's 13 seconds, but they're paused 2 seconds after a special attack, so that's 15 total seconds. And now I'm making sure to end with a light attack to pause those debuffs as I build to SB2. And then the SB2, I'm going to make sure that I pause or activate the pause timer and then throw the SB2, and it does 1 incinerate debuff and then 1 additional one for every non-damaging debuff that's on the opponent. So that's a total of 4. And that debuff, that incinerate, also gets paused from the pause timer. So this is really where it is with building her damage to its max potential, is just utilizing that pause timer and finding your little windows, pockets to pause it, and then using the SB2 at the right time with the fight, just feeling the fight out. What you will see sometimes is right after I pause it, if it looks like I'm not going to be baiting a special out, or if it looks like the AI is not going to be passive, I immediately retaliate with a medium. And that's because instead of placing another Cowardice debuff, since we're at the max 3, it'll add another Incinerate debuff to the fight. And this would be probably close to the max potential for damage for her without obviously suicides and boosts. And you can see here I'm going past this SP3 because this fight's pretty much over, and I'm going to go ahead and showcase what the SP3 does for a longer fight. So we're at 110 hits when we threw this, technically 108 because there were a few hits. And then for every incinerate that was there, they burst, and then he's gone. So somewhere between that first clip and that second clip, we have probably the ideal and practical way to play her. You know, you're not always going to have fights where you're able to maintain all 3 debuffs, but it's not a big deal if you don't. Obviously, the fight, you could reach a max potential of 20 incinerates, and I didn't in that fight. So the practical way to play her, or the more realistic expectation, would be somewhere in the middle of those 2 clips. All right, so a few key abilities I want to go over. First, her duped ability. If you notice, the clips were with her unduped. It's because the dupe wasn't going to help her in that matchup. The dupe gives you energy resistance for every non-damaging debuff on her, not every unique. Her SB2 places more Incinerate debuffs if they are holding on to prowess buffs. And then armor up buffs have a chance of re-triggering if they're consumed by a special attack. So you can see the scaling here. The passive energy damage could prove useful on paths like Hazard Shift or Shifting Hazards where you're in the shock or the incinerate phase. It's not a lot of energy resistance without max sig and all three non-damaging debuffs, but it would be worth testing to see what kind of resistance it is, to see if you can slow play during those phases and then use her other unique ability, which we'll discuss down there at the bottom a bit later, and be aggressive during the bleed poison phase. And then that prowess thing is kind of important since she doesn't actually remove prowess without a synergy, and that's with Psylocke. The buildup of prowess on the opponent is going to benefit her when she's duped. So the few incinerates you saw melt that chunky health pool in those clips would actually, you'd actually build more than that if it was a prowess matchup. Then the other pretty unique ability is that she takes 0 damage from poison and bleed effects. And on top of that, every time one triggers, she regenerates 20% of the missing health at that time through a regen buff. So you're going to hear a lot that she's a robot with willpower. It's specifically for the bleed and poison, and it's going to be good against, like I said, those hazard shift nodes where you can probably get them to trigger a lot. Now, word of caution on that. In war you have things like despair, or if you're fighting a Magneto, which you can with her since she's immune to mutants modifying her ability accuracy, you could end up having that reversed. So it's going to be perfect for questing where you probably don't have to think about it. But in war, it's going to be something you want to test and kind of feel out and see if her damage is there to combat how quickly she might, degenerate or whatever during the fight. It would be a snowballing thing since she only regens 20% of her missing health. At first it might seem small, and then it might build the longer the fight goes. And then the last ability I kind of want to point out is the first line here, where she's immune to Nullify, Stagger, and Fate Seal. So she has those armor up buffs and that regen buff that won't get nullified from things like Buffet or a champ's abilities. So, the Vigor and Buffet path in war, she might actually be good for, especially since she has the heal block utility, and then combo that with the fact that she's immune to Nullify, Fate Seal, and Stagger. And then the immunity to any type of modified ability accuracy reduction from a mutant. So that makes her immune to things like Magneto, and that's where a lot of times Nimrod kind of catches me on oh wait, you can't use Nimrod for Magneto, he's metal. Well, yes you can, because he's immune to mutant ability accuracy reduction. So same thing, or modification. So same thing with her. All right, and then what I'm going to leave you with is her matchup here against Wolverine in Realm of Legends. This is just going to utilize, or be a video utilizing her utility, the heal block, while upping the damage and playing her what I would recommend is the ideal way, but also to showcase one of her abilities, which is her placing plasma debuffs instead of incinerate debuffs against mutants. And that's kind of a benefit since Colossus, Sunspot, Kitty Pryde, there are a few incinerate immune mutants, and none of them are immune to plasma. Still doesn't make her that great against Bishop, but it at least is damage over time against those specific immune champions. But also this is just to kind of see where she might excel. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Not going for she's OP, she's ridiculous, you need her, go get her. Going more for this is the gameplay that I found. This is the info I found interesting, and take that and go practice and go learn some more, and let's have a conversation about, what else are you finding and where else are you finding her useful. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this clip. Hit like, subscribe, share, follow, and I will catch you guys at the next video.